So I've been waiting for this kind of channel here for a while, where somebody gets on here and actually just goes off on this shit. I mean, seriously. We you can go somewhere and watch. You can go to the mainstream media and you can get news about marijuana there, but you're not going to get a story like this. I guarantee you. All they got is innuendos and puns and munchy jokes, and it's just garbage, really. Reefer Madness, they love that. Whenever Reefer Madness comes out, they fucking line up in droves to report on that. But they never report on the real shit. All right? They never tell you about the real statistics. They got a narrative out there that marijuana is dangerous somehow and it's addictive, like I was saying. And they're keeping this narrative alive. No, I'm not telling my audience to go witch hunt these rehab centers, which... let's see. Yeah, here you go. You can Google search it for marijuana rehab centers, and you get a shitload of them. And like I said earlier, these are all like places where you can go, check in the gold package and pay $20,000 to sit there for 3 months and get rehabilitated. No one's doing that on weed, all right? No one's... And I mean, even parents that are stuck with the choice at the courthouse to either send their kid to rehab or jail over marijuana, they're not going to send them to a place like this, believe me. It's going to be some state-run piece of shit that's just, we're about to find out. So the story is called Who Really Benefits from Illegal Marijuana in New Jersey. New Jersey, we've heard Chris Christie's about to become the new drug commissioner, whatever that is. I believe it's a new position or something. I mean, we already have a drug czar and all this other stuff, and we got a whole organization called the DEA that's supposed to be taking care of drugs and, controlling the substances. And what we've found over the years is that none of it's real. It's all just a fake facade for people to get funding for their budgets and to basically just spend money to make lives miserable for addicts. And when it comes to marijuana, to continue to throw them in bunch them in with the other drug addicts and pretend like they're addicts too, just because they do something that the state doesn't approve of. It's sad. This is one of the worst stories you're going to run into. And again, thank you, Chris Goldstein. So the Joint Committee for Ethical Standards at New Jersey legislator on Tuesday dismissed a complaint filed against Assemblywoman Mary Pat Angelini, Republican from Monmouth, who has been accused of appealing to benefit from the Garden State's marijuana laws. I mean, there's no appearance, my friends. This is flat-out corruption. You'll see. All right, Governor Chris Christie has been lauded in some circles for voicing support for new approaches to drug law offenders, mainly by putting some people into treatment instead of prison. But the political cover also keeps all drug prohibition laws, including those for marijuana, and penalties, including jail, fully intact. So let's go through that again. Let's look at that. Chris Christie, who is the number one prohibitionist on the East Coast, the number one anti-marijuana go-to guy for every argument you can ever hear, he basically said that he will never see marijuana legalized on his watch as long as he's governor of New Jersey, even though I think it polls in the 70s on adult use in New Jersey, and I believe that most of the assembly people in New Jersey are for some kind of legalization of adult use. There's a bill on the floor, blah, 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 blah. But it's not going to happen, not as long as Chris Christie's sitting there, king of the donuts. Now, yeah, like I was just saying, he's going to be this new drug commissioner, and guess what? He's going to be in charge of the opioid epidemic. So we'll see how that goes. The guy, he's got one of the worst opioid problems in the country in New Jersey. Also, big meth problems out there, and basically every drug in the book. But somehow he always has something to say about marijuana. So will that trend continue now that he's on the national stage? Because we've seen enforcement, or we've seen the attempt of the government, especially the federal government, to try to prevent people from doing hard drugs or trying to talk about we're doing something about the drug problem, and then they go after marijuana. Time and time again. That's what we've seen for the last 40 years. Oh, we have a super bad heroin problem. Better go after marijuana. Oh, there's a crack epidemic. Better go after marijuana. And heroin in the 90s. Better go after marijuana. Same thing. If we see that happen here, it won't be any surprise to anybody like me that's been seeing it my whole life. So the governor's new approach may also be growing a private industry that has little oversight. Businesses and nonprofits related to substance abuse and education have close ties to state agencies and elected officials. And they're more than happy to see people funneled out of the courts right into their front doors, bringing bags of tax dollars with them. So like I was saying earlier, no one's checking into these rehab places for marijuana out of their own volition with their own dollar. But, you know, if you get sent there by a judge and the state has to pay for it, well, then that's a different story. Or, like I was saying, they usually corner the parents of kids that get caught with marijuana. You know, they corner them in a room, and they're basically like, you know, hey, well, you can either pay for this shit, or we can, you know, make the penalties harder. You know, they make the parents pay. We've seen it. I've seen it in person. So a law passed last year, Senate Bill 881, forces some of those arrested for drug offenses, including any amount of marijuana, into a state-contracted, sometimes custodial, substance treatment program. What does custodial mean? That means that it's completely run by non-state agent people. And they're under, I mean, this is state contracted or state. Judge must deem the offender to be addicted to cannabis. Now, that has big implications. Now, when a judge tells you that you're going to go to a rehab because you're forced to because of this thing, you're like, okay, that sounds good to me. Let's go. Off to rehab I go. It's better than jail. Oh, whoa. Hold on. Before you go, I have this sworn statement here that you have to sign saying that you're addicted to marijuana. All right. Now, I did a video about the whole, I don't know, addiction, and every time I talk about this reefer madness when it comes to marijuana and addiction, I have to say the same thing. There is no such thing as marijuana addicts running around freaking out because they got to quit marijuana, or they're going to jail, or they're going to it's just ruining their lives. You know, they're literally on the street corner begging for change so they can get more weed, or stealing shit from their friends. That's just not happening, man. If it is, the person doing it more than likely is just a serious addict. Addictive personality is a serious problem. About 10% of the population suffer from it, and that's where they get all their statistics about marijuana. And besides that, they get hard data statistics, as in they can pull up a piece of paper and say, oh yeah, New Jersey had 2,300 marijuana addicts last year. Well, this is why. Because you have to sign a piece of paper before you go to this mandated rehab that you're a fucking marijuana addict. Does this help anybody, man? No, it doesn't. The only thing this does is make people rich. I don't know why that they want to get rich off of other people's misery. But the person that got caught with the marijuana would have never had any misery without this shit. And then the people that are really drug addicts, they don't get this. You don't get caught with some heroin and they're like, okay, we'll just send you off to rehab. No, that's not how it fucking works. And if you want to get really clean on heroin, you want to go to a rehab place, get your $20,000 lined up and pack your bags, because it ain't going to happen in fucking New Jersey. One thing about getting clean from drugs is you got to get away from where the drugs are. And last time I heard, the drugs are all over New Jersey. So, hey, Christy, the more prohibition you push, the harder of a drug underground you got of the black market. That's a proven fact. I'm so sick of you guys with your proven facts and your whatever you want to call it. It's all correlation and anecdotal bullshit, but it's good enough to scare, the church ladies. But you know what? When you're talking about addiction, it's sad that you even bring marijuana into the conversation. And if there's somebody out there that's watching this video that thinks I'm wrong about this, and you know somebody that's addicted to marijuana and all that stuff, go ahead and comment below and tell me about it, and I'll look into it. I really want to know about this. But usually it's just somebody with an addictive personality, and it's almost like they're doing the marijuana because they're afraid to do real drugs that are addictive, which is good because it's a lot healthier to not do heroin. So Angelini is the executive director of a nonprofit called Prevention First. Keep that in mind. It's a company whose mission focuses on youth addiction and even violence issues. because I'm sure that a lot of people get, they get sentenced to something, and one of the things is anger management. So she's just trying to get all that state money going her way that she can. So while Prevention First does not operate any substance treatment centers, they do provide the training and state certifications required for those who work within those facilities. Ooh, making money on the fringes. Prevention First also facilitates directories of drug treatment facilities and options in Monmouth County. So when you get caught, they also basically give you a piece of paper that says, oh, here's the treatment centers that you should try going to. And of course, they're all treatment centers that she trains the people. And all this shit is that she's actually making more money than the treatment center itself. And she has that degree of separation where she's not the treatment center, but she gets the funding for the treatment center. They go on. So at the joint committee meeting, there was a real question as to what Prevention First actually does. The committee members and the staff attorney took a position that substance abuse treatment was wholly separate and distinct from substance abuse education or prevention. That should be written into law somehow. You can't call yourself education and prevention if you're also trying to say you're a treatment center. It's a conflict of interest. The core issue in the complaint was if Assemblywoman Angelini was garnering a personal profit by voting against medical marijuana access, voting against decreased penalties for adults caught with small amounts of cannabis, and voting in favor of S881. The one that mandates you go to rehab instead of jail, and the one that tells you that you have to tell the judge that you're a marijuana addict. We know this bitch is corrupt, man. Come on. We're sick of this shit. We're really sick of this shit. You guys are playing with people's lives, and you think it's a joke. You think it's a joke to call someone a marijuana addict and then have them go to a rehab center and pay good money or, get paid to go by taxpayers. We don't want to pay for that shit. Leave the people alone that's smoking marijuana and get people that want help from drugs the help they need. And it's so, on a side note, when you send somebody to rehab for like heroin or some shit like that, you know what you get is a 90% rate of failure. These people are going to go back to the drugs every time they walk out that door. You don't help somebody that don't want help. And when you give somebody more problems in life, like you take an addict and force them to go to a rehab center that they don't want to go to, and then there's stipulations there, and if they mess that up, they end up in jail anyway. So you could do like 6 months in rehab, screw up at the last minute, and then boom, you're right back in jail. Or get out, go home, screw up then, and then boom, you're still going to jail. So it was a big waste of time for the person that's the addict. You just made his life harder. You didn't do anything, man. The Joint Committee entered into an interesting discussion, eventually acknowledging that substance abuse education, prevention, and treatment were all part of the same industry. Oh, God. It's just like saying that privately owned prisons is an okay thing in a free country. No, it ain't. And you don't make an industry out of people's misery, man. Only in America, man. All right, they concluded that Angelini could express her opinion and vote on the bills because any benefit would be to her entire industry and not her nonprofit specifically. Well, by that measure, then all corruption is okay because anybody can paint a picture where the money's not going directly to them. And this is how you see corruption play out all the way to the highest levels of government, and nobody's saying shit about it. Well, whatever. This is corruption 101. Oh, this isn't helping me directly. It's helping everybody like me. I'm just getting a little bit of help. This is sad. This is a clear-cut case of corrupt bullshit. The committee members compared it to a legislator who was bank executive who sponsored and voted for bills favoring all financial institutions. Yeah, we don't like that either. What? The revolving door in general is disgusting. So if you was a bank executive and now you're a fucking legislator, we know why. Because you want to make bills and sponsor them and vote for bills that would favor financial institutions, like getting rid of Glass-Steagall or, just all the regulations out the window and let us do whatever we want. Let insurance companies pretend like they're investment brokers and shit with your money. Because the committee opted to dismiss the complaint based on a carefully crafted recommendation by their attorney, not even a cursory investigation took place that may have revealed a few more salient points. And we can just speculate on what those are. We can look into case histories and just see where people got railroaded into this shit. We can look at the success rate of their program. Look at all the people that she's training and follow them back to their prospective rehab centers and then check out their success rate on people that they've supposedly rehabilitated, whether it be for marijuana addiction or straight up heroin addiction. Real addiction. Let's just say addiction. Take the substance off of the fucking thing. All right? Addiction is addiction. No substance is like, oh shit, I gotta have more of that. Always, forever. I'll sell my soul for that shit. Nothing's like that, dude. Nothing is like that. Addiction, even with people with addictive personalities, is something you have to develop. It starts out as a habit. And if you're the person, if that's something that fits you, then you keep doing it. If you're addicted, it has nothing to do with the substance itself. So with a budget of more than $1.8 million per year, Prevention First is funded by cash grants supplied by the state of New Jersey, municipalities, and other government funds. That's the definition of a leech right there. They solely exist to exploit people's misery, and they're completely funded by your tax dollars. That's a leech. All right. Prevention First won grants from the New Jersey Department of Human Services and Monmouth County Health and Human Services Agency earmarked for, quote, mental health and addiction services. The organization lists fundraising collected and fundraising expenses as a financial wash. About $200,000 of money above board in their most recent annual report from 2011. And this is above and beyond paying people like this Angelini lady. And you'll see, she gets paid really good. All right, one of the recent grants from New Jersey is for Prevention First to run one of the 17 official county coalitions for substance abuse prevention and treatment. On paper, the nonprofit appears to be solely supported by tax-funded grants. Remember, guys, grants are money that they don't have to pay back, in case you didn't know. Prevention First spent more than $1 million in 2011 to pay off staff, consultants, and professional service fees. $91,526 went to its executive director, Mary Pat Angelini, as salary. And then, she also pulls in a base salary of $49,000 from the state for her part-time gig as assemblywoman. So that's, again, in my opinion, which is probably better than this opinion that was derived from a bunch of lawyers and a politician sitting in a room, my opinion is this is a direct conflict of interest for any representative to be head of some kind of stuff, something like Prevention First. Especially, you're making laws, you're voting on laws, you're talking about laws, you're sponsoring laws that affect the bottom line of all the people that Prevention First services. It's SB 881 that made it so, people have to go to rehab, Prevention First, instead of going to jail. I don't know how the jail lobbyists feel about all of this, but as you look at it, the prohibitionists and the government in general are like, oh, this is better. We're giving people options so they don't have to go to jail. Well, guess what? They still get the criminal record, and if they get caught again, they're going to jail just as hard as if they went to jail the first time. And you're not doing anybody a favor by calling someone a marijuana addict or making them call themselves that. The New Jersey Compassionate Use Marijuana Act was signed into law back in 2010, but implementation of the extremely limited medical marijuana program has been significantly delayed. About 1,000 patients have registered with the MMP out of a patient population of well over 300,000 statewide. The single alternative treatment center, one dispensary, I wouldn't even call it that, allowed to start growing cannabis for those patients, has now been closed for more than 8 weeks. Before I even made this channel, I was reporting on New Jersey's garbage medical marijuana program and this disastrous rollout, second only to maybe Maryland. But Maryland looks like when they actually do get their shit running, it's going to be better because whatever. I mean, theirs is almost as old as, we're talking about a program in New Jersey that's been around for 7 years. The whole time Chris Christie's fat ass, sorry about that, has been sitting in New Jersey making laws and talking shit. He and his minions are the ones that crushed medical marijuana in New Jersey. And this is what's going on in Florida and other places where the corrupt legislator has better ideas than we do about marijuana. And one of them is to call it an addictive substance and put people in jail and rehab and blah, 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 as we've seen in state after state after state. Many residents with qualifying medical conditions use cannabis purchased in the underground marijuana market. Big surprise. Where else are they going to get it? Sometimes they are arrested. Patients caught by police with underground marijuana in New Jersey, even those registered in the program with state-issued ID cards, are given no immunity by police or the court system. They are prosecuted and treated like any other offender. Angelini is a singular public voice of absolute opposition to the compassionate use law. She has written numerous opinion pieces for newspapers and submitted many letters to the editor. When addressing the issue of medical cannabis in public forums, Angelini always uses her dual titles as an elected official and director of Prevention First. Which, obviously the people that have her talking at their events are like, oh, this is great. She's so credentialed. But they don't realize that it's just slaps you in the face with corruption. There are more than 20,000 marijuana possession arrests each year in New Jersey. Wow. About half of all drug-related arrests in the state. Those arrested for marijuana are often given the option to complete substance abuse treatment / education programs, often at their own expense. As part of plea agreements with courts and prosecutors in exchange for lesser charges, reduced sentences, and or fines. Thus, marijuana offenders are often required to seek out third-party information about available treatment options to satisfy the courts. And like you heard earlier, Angelini has the organizational capacity to just hand these offenders a list of people that are in their little cabal, I'll call it. Now, some cannabis prohibition offenders, even if they are consuming it medicinally, can be remanded by judges into mandatory substance abuse treatment programs under SB 881. Of course, I mean, you're using marijuana as medicine, and there's a freaking law in your state saying that that's a thing, and yet you still have to go to rehab for using your medicine? Is this fucking absurd or what? I mean, there is actually people out there abusing their opioids that they were prescribed at one time, or maybe they still are. They're abusing their opioids, and they're not going to rehab. You're not telling them that they have to go to rehab, and they probably would like to go to rehab eventually. And then when they finally do get to the point where they want to go to rehab, when they hit rock bottom, they don't have no money to go to rehab because it costs fucking money if you want to go to rehab. SB 881 has also made more than $1 million in state money available in just the pilot phase for, quote, substance abuse services at facilities certified and approved by the New Jersey Department of Human Services. I'm going to go ahead and, even using their own numbers. So their marijuana arrests are about half of all arrests for drugs in New Jersey. Wow. Now you have all these marijuana offenders going to this rehab when marijuana is not even addictive. You got just as many people in there for marijuana as all the other drugs put together. That's fucking ignorant. New Jersey, you really suck, man. And Chris Christie and all your minions, I can't wait until you fuckers get voted out finally in 2018. I don't understand how you people in New Jersey reelected Chris Christie in the first place. He's never been there. He's never been in New Jersey to do anything but fuck you over, give tax breaks to the rich, do crony capitalism to the hog farmers. I mean, this guy is a hog. He basically doesn't do anything that isn't going to benefit him in some corrupt way. Like be Donald Trump's little bitch boy back during the election process. Come on, man. Wake up, New Jersey. I mean, go vote, I guess. I mean, half the problems with all these Republican-based ideology strong like positions all over the country is because you got two people, you got two classes of people. You got those who vote and those who don't. Those who vote always seem to vote for Republicans. And they go to the voting booths anytime there's an election religiously. In fact, I think they come right out of the megachurch and go right to the voting booth and vote. So keep that in mind when you see an election coming up and you're just like, I don't pay attention to politics. Bunch of dumb nerds. Don't worry about politics. I'll just sit here and do my thing. Don't really affect me. Come on, man. We need everybody out there to vote. I'm not saying that go vote for Democrats to get rid of Republicans. I'm saying look at what's going on and go vote. All right, there's something going on in every place that can affect this. And everywhere you go, there's all kinds of old people that go to church and they vote. And they vote for Republicans. No matter how bad the Republicans fuck them over, they keep voting for them. Cannabis toxicity is low or non-existent, and even the National Institute on Drug Abuse, a federal agency, rates its addictive qualities as less than caffeine and nicotine. When used as part of a medical therapy for serious illnesses, marijuana is not being used illicitly, and its use by New Jersey residents should be outside of the concern of Prevention First or any other business in the addiction field. Yeah, good lecture, but they don't hear you. Angelini and Prevention First have taken millions of dollars under the banner of substance abuse, showcasing just how easy it is for her industry to profit from drug prohibition offenders. Mainly marijuana consumers, like I just said. This money-making scheme funded by taxpayers is legal and institutionally ethical. Now, when you're talking about people that have to pay for their kids to go to these rehab places when they get caught, all right, you got two different kinds of kids. The ones that get caught with all other drugs and the ones that get caught with marijuana. It's sad, but again, I hate to say it, but statistically and in reality, the parents of the kids who are on the harder drugs have already given up on them by the time they get to this level, and they're just like, send them to jail. Maybe that'll teach them a lesson. But the kid that just got caught with marijuana in our society, where we look at things with a little bit of sympathy and compassion, whatever, we'll send them to rehab. So I guarantee you, these rehab places are just chock full of marijuana addicts who aren't really addicted to marijuana. They're probably not even really addicts. They just got caught with marijuana. And this is such bullshit. $1 million from you, the taxpayers of New Jersey. $1 million. And again, this money-making scheme funded by taxpayers is legal and institutionally ethical. And this little joint committee that they had to discuss all this shit kind of just solidified that. You know, if you didn't think this shit was ethical and legal, you know, on the outs, well, there's a meeting minutes, I should say, that have all this in there and all the members signed them. And now this is all official shit. People that, like, if you have a Prevention First kind of a thing that's like an umbrella over a bunch of agencies that call themselves drug rehabilitation centers, you can get money. Again, I'm not telling anybody to do what I did and call a couple of these places up and tell them to at least take the marijuana is addictive, and just take that propaganda off their websites. I seen one where they were talking about the LD50 being something like 3 milligrams per kilogram. I mean, do the math. That sounds like you could overdose on marijuana with like 300 grams or something like that. And then they said, it's possible to do it. You just, the medibles, if you eat the marijuana, you can probably overdose on it. Give me a break. You know, people make fun of hangovers from alcohol all the time. They don't realize that's overdosing. That's overdosing on a deadly substance, and you almost died. I mean, it's not that serious. People get hung over off of alcohol mainly because they drink caffeine with it. But the problem here is that you got marijuana in treatment centers. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it does make a whole lot of dollars.